Up its defence of vital undersea cables and pipelines with new multi-million-pound Atlantic Bastion force.
Yes, the Defence Secretary John Healey says the UK and its allies are ready to track and deter Russian submarines using autonomous vessels and drones and things, AI, warships and aircraft. He says subsea infrastructure carrying 99% of global data must be protected from growing interference, i.e. undersea cables.
We're now joined by GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Now, Mark, of course, earlier today we saw the bigwigs going into Downing Street to discuss the whole situation with Ukraine. And I'm just wondering, with regard to this, how does this kind of affect everything? Because obviously we are now trying to protect ourselves from Russian interference here in the UK.
Well, there's a lot at stake here today in what is being talked about in Downing Street, and it's only being talked about really because as much as the optics of this are important for Volodymyr Zelensky to get his bear hug from Starmer every month or two, and also to be seen alongside Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz, the big discussions, such as they are being handled by the new US negotiators and Ukraine, and the US negotiators and Russia. And at the end of the day, of course, Europe and its leaders can show their support for Volodymyr Zelensky, but he'll either agree or he won't agree to whatever is being thrashed out by Donald Trump. And at the moment, it's certainly been seen, the 28-point plan that was published there has been seen as more advantageous towards Russia than Ukraine. But every time there's sort of any kind of alterations to that particular draft, then they run into the barrier of Russia not really wanting to accept that at that point.
And meanwhile, Putin must be laughing in the Kremlin. He looks at these images inside Downing Street, and we saw President Putin alongside US negotiators last week inside the Kremlin, and his body language, hopefully we can get some images later on in the programme for you, but his body language was so relaxed, he looked so in control, and as you alluded to, Mark, he appears to be getting most of the stuff he wants at the moment. And it's important to point out, of course, isn't it, that President Zelensky not at the negotiating table at the moment. So realistically today in Downing Street, what can they expect, those four leaders, European leaders, expect to achieve when it comes to ending this war?
I think nothing more than just, publicly showing their solidarity with Volodymyr Zelensky. As far as Vladimir Putin is concerned, a key ambition of his, of course, is to drive a wedge between the US and other European NATO allies. And to that end, I think he will feel that it's a job in progress, but a job that certainly is favouring him at the moment. The way in which Donald Trump has drawn out his national security strategy, which has just come out over the weekend there, and does not talk about Russia in the sense of being a significant threat against the US, does put the Europeans for not stepping up to the mark and providing their own security with regard to funding their own militaries to a reasonable amount. So that is, of course, all adding to the tension between the European allies in NATO and the US itself. And against that, what we have as a kind of, a subplot